The Food and Drug Administration oversees products accounting for roughly 20 cents of every dollar spent by American consumers. Because the agency cannot physically police the millions of domestic facilities that produce our food, drugs, and medical devices alone, it relies on a vast network of interagency cooperation to maintain adequate oversight. The legal mechanism that makes this massive distributed enforcement possible is Section 702(a)(1)(a) of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. This specific statute authorizes the FDA to conduct official examinations and investigations using health, food, or drug officers employed by state, territorial, or local governments. Commissioning an individual constitutes a specific delegation of power. It reclassifies a local state employee as a federal officer, authorized to operate under federal jurisdiction on behalf of the FDA. Under Section 372A of Title 21 of the United States Code, these newly commissioned state and local officials legally become officers of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. To expand its regulatory footprint across the United States without compromising security, the FDA utilizes a highly vetted two-part operational framework. This consists of direct commissioning and discretionary information sharing agreements, or 𝗖𝗺𝗺𝗺𝗃. This architecture requires exact precision. The agency must balance the outward expansion of its regulatory enforcement power with the absolute protection of highly sensitive commercial and federal data. Without this exact legal structure in place, the FDA would have no secure mechanism to scale its field operations. Attempting to do so would risk severe breaches of federal disclosure laws and the illegal exposure of protected trade secrets. This flowchart maps FDA interactions with outside agencies, delegating authority or granting data access. The commissioning track grants federal authority for regulatory actions and non-public data access. The information sharing track is governed by Title 21, Section 20.88 for state and 20.85 for federal agencies. An information sharing agreement is purely a contract to share non-public information. It does not delegate any FDA regulatory authority to the receiving agency or its personnel. These agreements take two structural forms. Long-term agreements last up to 5 years for specific commodities, like food or medical devices. Case-specific agreements are drafted for specialized immediate events, such as a targeted outbreak investigation. Under a long-term agreement, anyone within the primary signatory's chain of command can access the shared information. In contrast, case-specific agreements restrict data access strictly to the individual employees who have signed a targeted confidentiality form. Confusing these two distinct tracks carries severe legal risk. An information sharing agreement provides an agency with situational awareness. Only a commission provides an individual with the legal power to act on the FDA's behalf. Within that commissioning track, the exact scope of the authority granted is strictly defined by the physical artifact issued to the official. The first artifact is the pocket credential. This grants the holder active federal authority to engage in investigational and inspectional activities representing the FDA. Specifically, a pocket credential legally empowers the official to conduct physical examinations, collect material samples, and copy and verify facility records. These credentials operate under a strict constraint. The granted authority is limited to a maximum of 4 specific program areas, such as biologics, dairy, or radiological health. The second artifact is the Certificate of Commission. A Certificate of Commission does not grant field inspectional authority. It solely grants the individual federal authority to receive and review non-public FDA information. Any records received under a certificate are strictly for use in the official's cooperative work with the FDA. This data cannot be legally used to independently trigger or inform state-level compliance actions. There is one exception to these specific limits, the Executive Certificate of Commission. This credential bypasses the 4-program limit entirely to cover all FDA commodity areas. This high level of access is exclusively restricted to top state agency officials, like heads of agency or principal deputies, responsible for multiple program areas. This architecture ensures that maximum data access is tightly centralized at the highest levels of state government. The data flowing through these established pathways is collectively classified as non-public information. This matrix maps 4 categories of non-public information: By law, the final category, trade secrets, can never be shared under any information sharing agreement. Trade secrets only pass through the direct commission channel, provided the officer has a valid FDA use. For personal privacy information, the FDA's default practice is to withhold this data across all sharing channels. It is only released if the requesting agency provides a substantive rationale demonstrating a critical need for their investigation. The legal liability attached to this data is severe. Any unauthorized disclosure of non-public information by a commissioned official is a direct violation of federal law, carrying significant civil and criminal penalties. This rigid filtering matrix serves as the legal mechanism required to protect corporate innovation and federal deliberative processes from illegal public exposure. Before an individual is trusted with this level of access, the FDA enforces a series of uncompromising gating mechanisms to vet personnel. The foundational requirement is demographic. Applicants must be citizens of the United States or U.S. nationals. Permanent residents and green card holders are explicitly ineligible for commissioning. To obtain a pocket credential, the applicant must pass a minimum background investigation, or MBI, at the Level 5 moderate risk public trust tier. The MBI is a comprehensive vetting procedure used by the government to determine suitability for accessing sensitive federal systems and restricted data. This investigation involves a 10-year background search, financial credit checks, and face-to-face reference interviews. The entire package is processed through the Electronic Questionnaires for Investigations processing system, managed by the Office of Personnel Management. Candidates must also clear strict financial conflict of interest rules. They are required to formally attest in writing that they have no personal financial interests or business relationships with firms in their requested program areas. This is a continuous requirement. If an official acquires a financial interest after receiving a commission, they must immediately notify the FDA and recuse themselves from any assignments related to that specific interest. Technical competence as a state inspector is only the baseline. An FDA commission is a highly conditional privilege, granted exclusively to individuals who successfully navigate this strict matrix of federal security and ethical suitability standards. Once granted, the commissioned official is subject to continuous accountability. The FDA reserves the unilateral right to deny, administratively hold, suspend, or completely revoke a commission at any time. The triggers that can compromise a commission are exact. They range from the unauthorized transmittal of non-public information to any pending investigation, trial, or charge for a felony or misdemeanor. To enforce this standard, the FDA utilizes a strict notification timeline. If a commissioned state or local official receives a criminal charge, they have exactly 10 calendar days to report the full details to their FDA oversight official. The FDA oversight official then has exactly 5 calendar days to escalate the issue to the Office of Partnerships. From there, the National Commissioning Coordinator will determine if an administrative hold of the commission is required. If an official maintains their compliance, the standard life cycle for a state or local commission is valid for a 5-year duration. Approaching expiration, the renewal process triggers a comprehensive evaluation. The FDA reviews the official's entire 5-year record, examining the volume of inspections conducted, the quality of interagency cooperation, and strict adherence to confidentiality protocols. Commissions are strictly non-transferable. If an official resigns or leaves their state agency, the commission terminates immediately. Because the physical pocket credentials are federal property, they must be returned to the FDA. This architecture allows the agency to fulfill its oversight mandate while ensuring that federal authority and commercial data remain strictly governed by federal non-disclosure laws. By enforcing rigid vetting and a clear bifurcation of access, the FDA successfully scales its regulatory footprint nationwide.